So, one question I did want to ask, because this screenplay obviously has a lot of like influences from anime and like shonen anime. I wanted
Mhm.
to know what was the idea or the spark that led you to write this project? Like, what was it that, you were probably thinking about or watching one day? You're like, I could make something out of this.
Well, I mean, I grew up on anime, Toonami way back in the day, Dragon Ball Z, Yu Hakusho, you know, Rurouni Kenshin, all of that stuff. And I think, you know, um, subconsciously, all of that came back up as I was writing this movie. And as a fan of anime, obviously it's very rare that again there are black characters at the center of it, but we are a very passionate fan base for anime. And so I just wanted to try to, create a story where that was no longer the case, that we were the main characters. While also, paying respect to the genre. You've read it. I think it's also like a love letter to the genre as well, and shows a lot of respect to it. So yeah, I feel like the lack of sleep aspect of it was literal. I have 3 kids, and the, not getting sleep with newborns is a is a very jarring experience, and so I think that's why the protagonist, has that issue. For him, it's nightmares, of monsters from his favorite anime, and it just kinda became this window for me to kinda jump into that world. Paprika is another big influence, a movie where you can go into people's dreams and things like that. So, yeah, I think, that's kinda where the idea came from, and then when I got into it, it was just like, again, making sure I had certain aspects of a shonen anime while also trying to do, fresh ideas as well.
Yeah, and I did want to give a little bit of background for everyone. So, the film is titled Believe in the Boy Who Dreams, and
Mhm.
the story follows this 12-year-old boy named Dorian Garrett Jr., who's also known as DJ, and he is plagued by recurring nightmares where he fights monstrous, obsessed spirits, but he always loses. So, DJ's parents, Crystal and Dorian Sr., are trying different therapies to help him, including imagery rehearsal therapy. And Dorian Sr., who is a researcher, has developed this new therapy called altruistic remedial therapy,
Yeah.
which allows people to enter someone else's nightmares to help them. And it's interesting that you mentioned Paprika because it's actually one of my favorite anime films. And I find that a lot of times when I like try to recommend anime to people, usually I try to recommend something pretty easy and simple. You know what I mean? Maybe like a one season. And if they're like, oh, what about like movies? I recommend like Studio Ghibli because that's a very easy way to like integrate into anime because people already know Studio Ghibli because a lot of the pictures from the film, like a lot of the stills, the imagery is very popular and it's using like popular artwork. But films like Paprika, films like um oh, it's escaping me. But do you remember the movie that is like kind of inspired by Black Swan?
Perfect Blue.
Perfect Blue. Yes, I knew there
Yeah.
was blue in the title.
Yeah.
Yes, films like that, they're a little more complex, so usually I don't
Mhm.
recommend them to people. But when I was reading this script, it did remind me of Paprika because
Mhm.
it is one of my favorite films that I have seen that just makes you think. Because a lot of times people recommend like when people think about films that make them think or make them consider like the human condition, they say films like, oh, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Mhm.
Something like that, or like Black Swan, like I originally mentioned. And I was interested for this script when I was reading it. I was wondering, like, what part of the human condition, I don't know if that's like kind of broad or maybe that's like, I don't know, too artsy of a question, but like, what aspect, I guess, of your life or other people's lives is what interested you or what, inspired you to write this? Because Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, it talks about like connection, loneliness, dating, relationships. And with Perfect Blue, it talks about like celebrity, parasocial relationships, things like that. Black Swan is all about ambition and competition and the comparison of others. So I was curious to see like what part of the human condition inspired you to write this script?
Yeah, I mean, I would say parenthood for sure, 1000%. Love as well. At the center of it, is kind of a rekindling of a love between Dorian and Crystal. Um, the issues with DJ have been causing some tension in the marriage, as well as changes in occupation. And throughout the story and going into his mind, they're able to kind of work out their differences and um through trying to save him, uh kind of making that the priority. And in order to do that, they know they have to kind of squash the things that are going on between them. And then parenthood is really the biggest of the human condition, I would say, because as a parent now, I just realize how much of my actions have impact on my kids. I'll see interviews where people will say, XYZ issue because mom or dad never told me they love me. And so right off the bat as a parent, I literally tell my kids every day I love them twice, at least twice, when they wake up in the morning and then when I put them to bed at night, so that they can never grow up and be like, "Oh, dad never told me he loved me." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like so many of the problems in the world, if you look at, you know, the villains of our world, 9 times out of 10, it was rooted in like a daddy issue or a mommy issue. You know what I mean? Throughout the entire history of time. And so I really just think parenthood is that important, right? Like what we do is the will result in them growing up to, either contribute to the world or take away from it. And so this is kind of about them recognizing their flaws as parents and going forward being able to do better, which is something that I'm actively trying to do every day. Like it's definitely not easy. And but it's always something that I'm conscious of just how much what I'm doing will impact them in the future.